TopMedTalk.
Alrighty, well, we are here at Anesthesiology 2018 at the American Society for Anesthesiologists annual meeting. I am Desiree Chappell, host of TopMedTalk, and I'm joined this morning by Monty Mythen, editor-in-chief of TopMedTalk. Good morning, Monty.
Good, it's great to be back. Good to be here in San Francisco.
It is. So TopMedTalk, we're here on the Smith's Medical booth.
1519, I've learnt the number, to say it. I can remember it now. Can't remember my hotel room, but I can remember it. We're on 1519.
That's right. And we're in the Connection Center.
Yep, which used to be called the Trade Exhibition for those people who are looking around for it.
I know, we're so upset about that.
We know what we're talking about.
But we are so fortunate to have space here on the Smith's booth. We also have an education booth that the ASA granted us, which was wonderful. And TopMedTalk is actually the broadcasting arm of evidence-based perioperative medicine.
Yep.
Right.
So EPOM just celebrated our 20th meeting in Dingle in the west coast of Ireland. We now have a global presence. I'm sorry we keep banging on about it, but we're proud of it. So we now have meetings around the world: Hong Kong, Australia, Singapore coming up. We now have a presence in the USA, so we have the Chicago meeting, and we have the Dallas meeting coming up in March next year for the first time. So we're truly global with a 20-year pedigree, so we're very proud of that. And this is our broadcasting arm. It is.
And it is great to be able to have different types of formats to share information. I know you all have been very passionate in that organization to share high-quality information to the delegates, and now we are able to utilize TopMedTalk to kind of reach a broader audience. It's
not over 90 countries.
Yep.
And again, apologise if people are tired of hearing this, but we're very proud. We were aiming for 10,000 downloads in this calendar year.
Yep.
And I just checked, we went over 90,000 this morning. So we'll probably go over the 100,000 at this meeting, which is great. So that's a 10x overperformance. Man, I wish we were on bonuses. I wish we'd invested in that somehow, but there we go.
Yeah, that's right. Well, here during Anesthesiology 2018, we wanted to focus on a theme, and we chose enhanced recovery, which is something that both of us are very passionate about. And so we're talking about everything enhanced recovery, different elements, how to get it started, how to get buy-in, what people's experiences are. We had the privilege to speak with Henrik Kellett yesterday, and kicked the conference off. So that was really a unique and wonderful experience. But this morning we have a very special guest with us who's also going to be talking about enhanced recovery, but looking kind of towards the future and different things that we can utilize in practice in these different perioperative quality initiatives. And it is Dr. Frederick Michard. Good morning, Frederick. How are you?
Good morning, Monty. Good morning, Desiree. My pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you stopping by and chatting with us this morning. So, Frederick, tell us a little bit about what you're doing these days.
So what I'm doing these days, I'm a medical doctor. I spent 15 years working mainly in intensive care units. Mm-hmm. Then I spent some time working for industry, for a big company, actually, based in the U.S. And 3 years ago, I started my own consulting business. So I'm based in Switzerland, and I focus on medical innovation, technical innovation that actually could help us, anesthesiologists, intensivists, nurses, to improve patient safety, improve quality of surgical care.
Wow, that's really cool. You always have seemed like you've been an innovator and want to be in that space.
I'm not an innovator myself, but I'm very interested in innovation, and that's why I really love what I'm doing now, because I'm in the middle. I see all these startups developing fantastic things. Mm-hmm. They also need support and help and the experience from bigger players. So I'm kind of a bridge between the two, and so I can watch what's happening, and I can tell you it's very exciting.
That's a bit innovative.
And I think at the end of the day, it's going to be useful, first of all, for the patients.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're saying you're not an innovator, Frederic. I just want to challenge you there, because when I've got a slide in my slide set that has pulse pressure variation on it, a diagram of the arterial waveform going up and down as a result of positive pressure breaths, and at the bottom it says Michard.
It was a long time ago, Monty. We're going to celebrate actually in a couple of weeks from now. You probably know, maybe you will be there for the European Society of Intensive Care Medicine Congress. we're going to celebrate the 25th anniversary for PPV. So I'll be there on stage. You're right. I'll be there on stage giving a lecture on PPV. I was really honored to be invited to celebrate this birthday. But it reminds me as well that I'm getting old.
No, it's not.
at least in 20, and there are other mentors, people involved in that whole development. The swing on the arterial waveform has been described a long time, but a huge contribution really because I think it's ubiquitously accepted now. There's debates about how you capture the signal, but I don't think anyone doubts the potential value of understanding why PPV exists in some people.
It's a long story. You mentioned, no, you did not mention any name, but I'm going to mention names like Azriel Perel, Jean-Louis Teboul, Michael Pinsky, François Jardin. These guys developed the physiological concept before with Jean-Louis. We clearly try to make it easy. And we also try to convince clinicians to look at this variable and to understand the clinical value. And we are, honestly, I'm very proud today to realize that that's a tool displayed on most bedside and hemodynamic monitors. Clearly, there are many limitations. We definitely acknowledge. But I think in many patients, it helped to improve fluid management, to individualize fluid management, and at the end, to decrease postoperative complications.
And it can be very easy to use, but it's also physiologically, it's a very complex signal, as you say, so the brain, the clever doctors also required at some stage, practitioners, sorry, I shouldn't jump to doctors there.
If you say so, Monty.
But that's not what we're here to talk about today, but we're 25 years, great celebration, older than ever.
20, not 25.
Oh, as old.
I'm not that old.
Okay, 20 years.
Just got 5 years on it.
But we're here to discuss a different topic, aren't we?
No, I think that just speaks to the innovation, I think is cool. So you have been... again, talking about these new technology, what has inspired you to go down but go down the road for some of the things that you're really interested in right now?
I think it's just, when you read what people are publishing, at some point we were really worried about fluid management. We are still, I know it's still a very hot topic, but I think we start to have more clarity regarding what should be done, how much fluid should be given, and that the fact we should individualize everything we do during surgery. And then if you read papers, you start to realize that, problems are also observed on the wards. Yeah. And I read a couple of papers, like the large USO study published in The Lancet by Pierce, I think 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I was really shocked when I realized that most patients who were dying after surgery were actually dying on the wards. As an intensivist, I'm an intensivist by training. I had the feeling that, most patients were dying in acute settings like in the ICU, maybe in the cath lab, maybe sometimes in the emergency department, but not on the wards.
Yeah.
And so there are a couple of recent studies highlighting the fact that the majority of patients in hospitals are actually dying on the wards. Mm. And the paradox, that's what I call the monitoring paradox, is that we do not really monitor, or at least we do not monitor closely these patients.
No,
it works. The nurses are doing spot check every 4 to 6 hours.
Yeah, if that, yes.
And so that's clearly, I think, a setting where we can potentially dramatically improve outcome. Yeah. It's completely in line with what I've done so far. Yeah. And I think it's completely aligned also with EPOM, with ERAS, with the perioperative surgical home, because the goal is clearly to continue to further improve postoperative outcome.
So, sorry to interrupt, but just for those folks who haven't read the detail, I just looked it up. It's in the numbers, which are quite shocking in the USOS study. It was just over 46,500 patients from just under 500 hospitals in 28 countries. And as you quite rightly say, they said 73% of patients who died were not admitted to a critical care unit.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
And that is still shocking to very many people. Now, some people counter-argue that and say, well, maybe they had do not resuscitate orders, etc. But there are other data that's included about cardiac arrests in the UK, and it would appear that a lot of it is sudden and unexpected. The majority of it is not anticipated.
So it seems to be real. It's a real problem we have to face, we have to solve. And the other reason why I'm interested is because I think with new technologies, actually, we can now envision monitoring these patients. Was not the case in the past until recently, because the goal, of course, is not to create new ICU beds or to turn ward beds into ICU beds with big monitoring system, all the wires, all the nurses. We would need to look at these variables all the time.
Costly.
So thanks to technological improvements, there are small sensors now we can imagine to use as a patch, stick to the skin. They are wireless. Thanks to software innovation as well, we can filter artifacts we always observe in ambulatory patients. We can integrate the information and end up with smart early warning scores.
Yeah.
And so, all these innovations are coming.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think we start to realize that there are issues on the wards.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm focusing on that.
And so I'm just looking at an article. I should declare a conflict. I'm on the editorial board of the British Journal of Anaesthesia, but an article by you, Frederic, with Dan Sessler, who we know well on TopMedTalk, from the Cleveland Clinic, and it's called Ward Monitoring 3.0. So I think the clue is in the title, which is there. And there's quite a shocking statement at the beginning. It says, patients who are admitted to hospital believe that they are entering a place of safety. They feel confident that should their condition deteriorate, they're in the best place for prompt and effective treatment. Yet there is evidence to the contrary. And as you highlight in the article, that quite shocking statement comes from NICE, from the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence in the UK. So it seems to be front and centre that we know this is reality.
Yeah. And I was shocked as well when I found this statement on the web. And so clearly, it's not, I'm not dreaming. It's not a bad dream. It's a reality. And so I'm pretty confident that EPPOM and other organizations of that kind will embrace, or I hope they will, because to be honest, I arrived just 2 days ago, but yesterday I was not impressed by the number of sessions where they were discussing about this issue. So I think we need to bring awareness around this issue, because it's obviously, as you just underlined, it's a big issue. And I still believe that very many anesthesiologists are not aware, many surgeons are not aware.
So we both attended over a year ago now a round table about perioperative hypotension. Yep. And the post-operative one, paper 4, I think what everyone was shocked about is we didn't really have anything to discuss. Not that there wasn't a lot to discuss, if you see what I mean, but we didn't have any evidence to review, because there's some out there, but it's such an underreported area. Well, and what was reported was shocking. In other words, how frequently, from Dan Sessler again, there was post-operative instability when recorded.
Yes. But actually, when you start looking at that more closely, you find studies. There are already more than a few studies showing that, for example, hypoxemia is very common on the wards. There are studies where they monitor blindly arterial oxygen saturation and continuously on the ward. And then they were able to realize that, first of all, hypoxemia is very common.
Right.
And missed 90% of the time. There are new studies coming soon. They are not yet published, but with the exact same conclusions regarding blood pressure. Hypertension after surgery is very common and is missed most of the time, just because we measure blood pressure every 4 to 6 hours.
Yeah, and once usually you're grabbing them up and out of bed and they're already...
I think the evidence is growing, and we even have outcome studies already published, not with wireless systems, but I think the concept is the same. Studies from Belomo, studies from Andreas Tenzer, showing that when we use monitoring systems on the wards, we can decrease the number of ICU admissions, for example. We can decrease even mortality. There is a recent study from the UK, from Chris Soube, showing a decrease in mortality after the implementation of such a system on the wards. So,
if I may, Desiree, just one last thing. In the paper, Table 1, now we don't discuss specific products on the stand here with this, but you have a table in there which, if I'm counting right, there's 11 wearable, 11 different companies and 11 different stick-on thingies, and they look to me like, big. They look about the sort of size of the distance between your forefinger and your thumb at most of them. Is that about right? Some of them are like the palms of your hand, but they stick on.
Yes.
And they monitor pulse rate, heart rate, ECG, ventilatory frequency. One of them does pulse oximetry. One of them has a go at blood pressure, a little bit about temperature. Everyone should have a look. Table 1, Michard and Sessler, British Journal of Anaesthesia, not promoting any specific product, but there are 11 choices there at the PL.
And probably today it's more than 11, because what's funny with this editorial is that actually I had to update the table after the first revision and the second revision.
Wow, because there were that many new ones
And that's
coming
also
out.
the beauty of what I'm doing now, is that there are so many companies, and I'm sure, by the way, I probably missed some products which are already approved for medical use. Because, by the way, what you did not say, Monty, is that these are not gadgets.
No.
These are products which are approved for medical use,
And the FDA.
at least in Europe and in the US.
Oh.
So the title is Medical Grade
Exactly.
Adhesive Patches for Physiological Monitoring, BP, heart rate, pulse rate, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So it's out there.
Yeah.
It's out there. We need more validation studies. These are new products. There are a few validation studies. So, we definitely need more studies to ensure they clearly measure what they are supposed to measure. And then, of course, the next step will be to also see if there is an impact on outcome.
Yeah. One thing that I love about it, and as a nurse, myself and have worked in the wards, and knowing that your time is limited, and there are specific there are patients I can think back to, and like, it would have been wonderful to have a continuous monitor on them that was non-invasive, and that they didn't have to be attached to anything. So I think that's great. So with enhanced recovery programs, we're sending people home a lot earlier than we have ever before, and probably those patients may need or should maybe have a little bit more monitoring. Are these particular devices, or are there other devices on the market that we can send them home with these?
Clearly, this is to me the next step.
Yeah.
But actually, for many companies, this is not the next step. They start by home monitoring because it's a much bigger market.
Yeah.
So it's a much bigger opportunity for them. But personally, I think we should go step by step, understand what these new technologies can bring us on the wards.
Yeah.
It's under control. We better understand what's happening in the hospital than outside.
Yeah.
But technically speaking, of course, there is no reason to believe that in 5 years from now, a patient will be discharged at a very early stage, will be monitored from home, and will have smart system developed to inform clinicians when needed.
Yeah, I think it's great. Well, yesterday we did, like I said, we were able to speak with Henrik about some different things that he sees as the future of care and enhanced recovery. And I saw his presentation on Friday, and he actually put your all's paper up and was talking about the importance of doing ward monitoring and failure to rescue patients. We shouldn't have that. We should be able to monitor these patients non-invasively. So that was really cool to kind of see the synergy, or to see all that working together.
Exactly. And honestly, a couple of years ago when I met Henrik for the first time, I was really amazed because he's a pioneer, as you said. He developed all these concepts. And when I started to discuss with him about my excitement about new technologies, he was already on board. Actually, he was already doing studies with wearable sensors to track activity.
Yes.
To quantify rehabilitation, early mobilization.
Yeah.
Because we often say we cannot improve what we don't measure. So now we even have tools. I'm not going to give any name, Monty, but there are even consumer products which are used in hospitals to quantify the physical activity of patients, particularly after orthopedic surgery.
Yeah, that's great.
So Henrik is clearly as patient for that as well.
Yeah.
And is publishing, you can check on PubMed, you will see publication from Henrik Kellett about wireless technologies.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the messages we got from him yesterday is we've done quite a huge amount based on his leadership to enhance surgical recovery, but we still don't completely understand the pathophysiology of surgical recovery.
Yeah.
So if we don't monitor it and measure it, we can't really understand it, and if we don't understand it, we can't look at the biology, which means we can't work out how to fix it. So I think they all feed into each other. Yeah.
I agree. I think what you are saying is that we are going to learn. Actually, it's not only having new technologies to monitor continuously, something we understand very well today, but monitor only intermittently. I think we are going to learn from the patterns. For example, blood pressure. We don't really know about the daily oscillation of blood pressure. What's normal, what's not normal, what is associated with complications or not. So I think having also these continuous signals will be the opportunity to better understand the physiology and probably ultimately to better treat our patients.
Because we've done a number of interviews this year about artificial intelligence. We know that devices have been approved now by regulators in Europe and the FDA that utilize artificial intelligence and machine learning to look at the complexity in those signals. And as those signals get richer, that's only going to get better and better, isn't it? Isn't that going to change it?
Yeah, I think so. We have to be careful because I think artificial intelligence is really a buzzword. So we have to be careful. We have to behave as we always did, and perform clinical studies, technical studies, validation studies. But the potential is obviously huge, and I would say it's even mandatory. If I mentioned the fact that if tomorrow we use these sensors in ambulatory patients, first of all, we need to have very robust software to filter all the artifacts.
Yes.
And also, if we envision to monitor patients on the wards, there is no way we are going to give nurses 5 variables to look at the same time. So for this integration, so far what's very popular is to use early warning score, but these are very basic integration. You just add a score for respiratory rate, another one for heart rate, and so on and so forth. We can do better. We already know we can do better with machine learning algorithms. There are already studies published from Marilyn Ravnak, for example, from UPMC. They can predict at an earlier stage just by combining these variables together with very smart algorithm.
Can I ask one more thing?
Please, yes.
So I've got 2 more things, Frederic. One is bed sensors, and the other one is facial recognition. So I went to visit a relative of mine who runs a care home in Ireland. They will all remain nameless, but all their beds have sensors in them.
Yep.
So when the people, particularly in their dementia unit, get up in the middle of the night out of the sudden, it's sensed. But also their movement in the bed is sensed. So if their normal sleeping patterns is deranged, they get a more detailed check to see if they're becoming unwell or dehydrated. Is that a...
I mean, as you said, we're not going to give any name, but I mean, this technology or these kind of technologies do exist. They are approved by the FDA. I will even tell you, there is even an outcome study showing that if you use a contact-free sensor, so it's basically a sensor you leave under the mattress, it's not only able to record, as you describe, the movement of the patient, it's also able to record or to feel the pulse, so the heart rate and the respiratory rate. And there is already an outcome study published, I think, in the American Journal of Medicine showing a value for these technologies. The only limitation is, of course, it's not for ambulatory patients.
No.
Yeah.
And I think you will agree that early mobilization is one of the key elements of these programs.
It also gives you a live bed census as well, which is important, because often we don't know how many of our beds are filled in UK hospitals. The last one is facial recognition, which is being spoken about quite a lot, that you can... A camera can detect a signal and see illness.
So I think today it's already possible to measure heart rate. It's pretty easy actually to detect the very small changes in the color of your face with your heartbeats. So there are validation studies showing that it's possible to measure heart rate. Actually, even with your cell phone, Desiree. I mean, there are apps where. You just look at your cell phone, but you don't take a selfie. Okay, you ask the app to measure your heart rate, and then you have the information. I know some people, some companies working on the measurement of SpO2, arterial oxygen saturation, respiratory rate. It's also in the pipe. Yeah. So you're right, Monty. We can also envision to have not only patch on the skin, but video cameras in the rooms able to monitor our most vital signs. It's coming.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Frederic, thank you so much for joining us and talking about all this really innovative, and you are an innovator, but talking about all this really cool tech and really kind of how we use it practically, how we're going to be able to use it in the future to take better care of our patients. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
We are now to, if people want to find you, Frederic.
Yes.
So I think the best is to visit my website. Yep. So it's michardconsulting.com.
And we'll get that up on the piece that we put out with it. We'll put that in that link in there.
Yeah, and some links to the papers that you've done recently.
They can find everything on my website.
Perfect.
Fantastic. Oh, the perfect website.
I know.
Do you do websites as well?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Website development?
Actually, I did it myself, but it's very easy.
I was just going to say, I don't know.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so thank you so much. We are here at the Smith's Medical booth 1519 in the Connection Center at Anesthesiology 2018. Be sure to check us out. Be sure to engage with us on Slido.com, hashtag TMT ASA 1818 and ask some questions. And please be sure to subscribe and enter to win.
Free if you subscribe now.
It is free if you subscribe. It is. TopMedTalk, all of our back catalog, all of our information, everything is free if you subscribe now. And if you do that this weekend, you will be entered to win a beautiful bespoke Marshall amp speaker.
If you're here at the convention.
If you're here at the conference. And I'm coveting it, so you better go ahead and do it now before I end up deciding to take it for myself. So anyway, thank you so much for listening, and we'll get you back here actually in just a bit with Michael Scott.
Great stuff.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Frederick.
TopMedTalk.